So I'm actually a partner in Reed Smith. They didn't put on the car. Fix that. So, just a little levity this morning. I lighten things up. My name is Brian Brown. I'm a partner in Reed Smith in the Houston office. I've been practicing for about 20 years. So not that long ago, or maybe it is that long ago, I was where you guys are now. Unfortunately, we didn't have programs like this at that time, but it's good to see a number of you who are interested in pursuing a career in law. This is the second time I've had the honor of introducing Vernon Baker. I guess last August, it was my pleasure to introduce him at the conference of Minority General Counsel at the 8 a.m. meeting, so I'm getting good, so I'm getting better at it, I should say. During the 20 years I've been practicing, I've been fortunate enough to have a number of mentors, people who take an interest in my career, making sure that I got the right type of assignments, the right type of work, so that my career grew, developed, and I was able to contribute and give back, which is key. And I had the pleasure of meeting Vernon, I guess, about 2 years ago. And in that brief period of time, I like thinking we developed a good friendship. I hope I'm not taking that for liberty.
It's okay.
It's okay. I developed a good friendship, and I've seen evidence of his commitment to diversity in our profession. And that commitment starts at the pre-law student level, all the way up to the practicing attorney level. For those of us who are just starting our careers, and those of us who are later in our careers like me. Those of us who are in in-house environments, and those of us who are outside counsel. Vernon, you'll see a lot of people who talk a good talk about diversity and their commitment to diversity in our profession. Vernon is one of those folks who I'm proud to say actually walks the walk. And he shoots straight. I remember our first conversation regarding his views about law firm diversity and his interest in willing to support those of us in law firms and what he expected from us. And he's been true to that. So, you could not have a better speaker this morning than someone other than Vernon Baker to give you a straight story about what it takes and how he's gotten where he's gotten. So, with that, Vernon, podium is yours.
Thank you, sir. Evangelist said he had 20 minutes. I've got 17 minutes of material, so just sit tight. No, okay. First of all, I want to say thank you, Brian, for that introduction. Ms. Mitchell, thank you so much for organizing this and asking me to participate. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful event. Glad to see such a good turnout. I think it's the only problem I have with this particular program is the order of the speakers. I never want to follow Patricia again, just so we're clear. Okay? You'll hear in my talk, you'll hear a lot of similarities, and I can assure you that Patricia and I did not get together and talk about what we were going to say, but I think you'll see recurring themes throughout this. My approach is going to be a little different. I'm going to take you from my early stages as a young man up until today. And as any lawyer, you know I have to give a disclaimer. This is my story. This is how I did it. If you can get something from it, that would be great. I've made a lot of mistakes. Listen to that too. If you get something from that, that would be even better. But understand, it's my story. This is how I did it. It's my personality. And so you folks have to forge your own path. It's very important that you do that. All of the wonderful people you're going to hear during this conference, most of them have some maturity on them. They've done it. Get something from them, but remember, follow your own path. I guess I'll start off by saying I was born in Harlem. it depends on what audience I'm talking to. If I'm talking to my Caucasian brothers and sisters, I say I was born in Morning Heights. But here with family, I was born in Harlem on 135th and Lenox. That's right, American gangster, that's right. That's right. Harlem to the core, that's right. I moved to the suburbs when I was 6. We moved to Teaneck, New Jersey, which is about 30 minutes from New York City. It's, back in the 50s, it was a segregated suburb, segregated by the railroad tracks. We lived on the black side of the tracks, the white folks lived on the other side of the tracks. Went to elementary school in my neighborhood, probably 95% African American students. It felt like an extended family. In fact, it was an extended family. The neighborhood was an extended family. I remember one time I was out in front of my friend's house, and this was before I got saved, and we were sitting there talking and using language that was inappropriate. And I was probably 10 to 12 years old, and I remember my friend's mother came out and she slapped the taste out of my mouth. And I ran home and I told my mother, I said, you know what? Mrs. Dyer slapped me. What were you doing? Well, I was using some language that might have been inappropriate for the occasion. She called Mrs. Dyer. She said, Ruby, what did he say? And Mrs. Dyer's recounted it, and my mother slapped me. No, the point of the story is that's how it was back then. Nowadays, what my mother would have done was sue Mrs. Dyers for abusing her child. And the problem we have now is, not enough of us take an interest in other people, other folks that are not necessarily related to us. So, I'm merely going along my upbringing in Teaneck, and then my father decides, when I was in 6th grade, to move us to the other side of the tracks, where there were 3 African American families. So we moved to the other side of the tracks, and this is in 6th grade. And unbeknownst to me, there's some educational reform in the works where they've decided now to integrate the Teaneck school system. So we moved to the other side of the tracks, but I get bused back to my old neighborhood school for 6th grade, which was interesting because there was a lot of controversy around it. Not so much the kids, but the parents. These were the same parents that would send their little darlings to summer camp during the summer and take an hour and a half bus ride, but they didn't want them riding with me and the other 3 African American kids from their side of the tracks back to the neighborhood, which was about a 15 to 20 minute ride. And again, it wasn't so much the kids, because I don't think you inherit racism. I don't think it's genetic. I think it's environmental. And after a certain period of time, there was this whole rift between the kids I used to play with in the schoolyard, but now that we're riding the bus, it's a whole different thing. So it was kind of like my first real slap in the face with respect to racism. You'll note as you hear my story, I'm not one who's big on always looking for excuses. I mean, Patricia talked about the but. My whole thing is, if I see racism, I see it. But I don't always see it just because I've been disappointed. Sometimes it's actually me. So we need to kind of keep that in mind. Moving on to high school. Now the high school in Teaneck was about 80% white and 20% African American, but it was a big high school, it's 2,000 people. So 20%, that's 400 brothers and sisters. I never felt like I went to a white high school because there was a good collection of us. The problem was, back in my day, they used to track students. Academic track, non-academic track. There were 4 African Americans, 2 myself, a guy named Daryl, and 2 sisters who were in the academic track at the time. And I'll tell you, it goes back to some of the things Patricia said about people around you. If they're not positive, then you need to let them go. I mean, I struggled in 9th grade because I was academically track, and at that time I wasn't really playing a lot of sports. So, you get a lot of questions about, you going to class? You bum. Okay. And at the time, you take, and this is for brothers. I mean, at this time, it's, what do you do? I mean, I want to go to class, I want to be successful. I'm not trying to stay in Teaneck all my life. But on the other hand, you know, these are my friends. These are the guys I want to hang out with, and they're questioning my authenticity because I'm going to class. Well, the good news is, I guess, between 9th and 10th grade, I grew 8 inches. And I started playing football, playing basketball, so you get your cred that way. And so it kind of worked out okay relative to now I'm authentic, even though I'm still going to class. And, you know, one of the things, you know, I mean, we laugh, but, you know, and at the time, let's be honest, to be popular in high school is not necessarily the valedictorian, okay? It's the captain of the football team, it's the captain of the basketball team. And so, I think, even though I still had this mentality of student and the fact that I was still 8 inches shorter than I was, I mean, because, you know, 9th grade, I was Urkel, okay? Family Matters, or am I dating myself? Okay, maybe in reruns, but anyway. But then when I grew and became an athlete and all that, it was a whole different entree, but I was still the same person, and it was very confusing for me because was this popularity because I hadn't changed, but then all of a sudden it was more accepted. So we're going through high school, and I'm, you know, captain of the football team, captain of the basketball team, I'm the top 10% of the class, and I remember we're going through, it was a history class, and our history teacher wanted to know where everybody was going to college. And, you know, I had a couple of scholarship offers for football and basketball, but, you know, my dad was, who was from Texas, by the way, he was pretty set on me going to an Ivy League school if I could get in. And so Dartmouth called, and, you know, I had gotten some inquiries from the coaches and from some of the academic folks. So as we're going around the room, when they got to me, I said, well, you know, I'm not really sure, but it's probably going to be Dartmouth, maybe Harvard, maybe Princeton. And you would have thought I had called somebody a racial epithet. One of the students jumped up, one of my Caucasian acquaintances jumps up and goes, what? That's why I didn't get into any of those schools, because of you. I said, but at this point I was saved. I'm a Christian. So I was a little more articulate than I was when I was 10. And what I said was, wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute, let's look at this closely. I'm the captain of the football team. I'm the captain of the basketball team. I'm in the top 10% of the class. And that's why you didn't get in? Seriously? And so, you know, that again, it shocked me, because I thought I was cool with everybody now, because, you know, I'm an athlete and scholar, but no, not really. But that's a peer, that's a kid. I was a kid, he was a kid. I go down to the guidance office, and I will never forget, I'm 60 years old. And when I put the notes together for this, I don't know if it's fortunately or unfortunately, all of these stories came back like that. It was not a big deal for me to go back and think about this stuff. I go down to the guidance office, and she says, congratulations, we got the acceptance letter, you've been accepted into Dartmouth. I just want to let you know, you're only the second African American from our high school to go to Dartmouth. And I knew the other guy because he had helped to recruit me and get me interested in Dartmouth. He said, but Vernon, I need to caution you. I said, yeah, what is that, Mr. Rosenberg? I said, caution me about what? He said, well, we just, between you and I, off the record, we had a Jewish student that went up there 2 years ago, and he flunked out. Now, again, I had to remind him I was in the top 10% of my class. Not number one, because maybe if I was number one, I would have understood the relevance of what she was saying, because I didn't get it. I just didn't understand what did that have to do with me, and did we have the same genetic pool? What did it have to do with me? And I think the point of all those stories is, and this is one of the lessons learned, you define who you are. You don't let anybody else define who you are. The guy jumping up, that's why I didn't get in, he doesn't define me. Mrs. Rosenberg doesn't define me. I define me. And I remember when I graduated from high school, we had a little party, and there was a lady, older African-American lady who lived on the block, I believe she was a widow, and she came to the party, and you know, you're getting gifts, you're getting briefcases, and you know, Mont Blanc pens and stuff like that. This lady gave me a big pen. I still have it. I'm not gonna lie to you, it doesn't work, but I still have the big pen. And she said, hey, baby, you write great things. And that always chokes me up, sorry. And again, I graduated high school in 1971. But you know, you just never know who's watching you. It's something that you need to keep in mind as you get along in your career. So I get this letter from Dartmouth, I'm in, I'm all excited, I'm going. I'm ecstatic, the euphoria is setting in. And then I'm thinking to myself, because I'm saying to myself, shoot, I was the man in my public high school. You know, I go up to Dartmouth, you know, I'm gonna kill it. I mean, I'm not even worried about what's going on. Then I start thinking about it some more. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute now. These are some rich folks that go there. About 40% of the classes, they go to private school, Exeter, Choate, Andover. I mean, I know these places now. I did not know them back then. And then I'm looking at the freshman book. You've got John Rockefeller's grandsons in my class. You've got Hess Oil Company grandson in my class. You've got captains of industry. Heck, we even had Captain Kangaroo's son in my class. And that's true. And so I'm thinking to myself, now my confidence is getting a little shaky. Can I handle this? So I get to Dartmouth, and I really settle in. I don't go out. All I do the first year is study. I handle my business. I get a 3.9 out of 4. No, wait. This boy comes. I told you, I'm gonna keep it real. That's the good news. Okay, so I take care of business, and it finally dawns on me. I can do this. They have nothing on me. I was the man in high school. I'm the man here. Not so fast, homeboy. No. So the sophomore year, I figured, I'm playing 2 sports. I'm getting more involved in the African American Association on campus. Remember, this is in the 70s, so we're still talking about apartheid. We're still talking about their divestiture in South Africa. We're still talking about some very political things. And I put heart and soul into the movement. I put heart and soul into the athletics. Probably a little less heart and soul into the academics. And I had gotten too complacent. And so as I went through Dartmouth, when all was said and done and it was time to apply to law school, I had a 3.2 average. Now, 3.2 is still decent, but I started off with a 3.9. The trajectory was like this. Most graduate schools prefer to see the trajectory the other way, like this. But still, I'm still thinking to myself, hey, 3.2, Dartmouth College, good LSATs, I should be okay. So I started applying to law school, and I remember, as if it were yesterday, I believe I sent the application to Yale on Thursday, and it seems like that following day. No, I don't think so, no. And then I got the letter from Harvard, which was waitlisted, Columbia, waitlisted, Georgetown, waitlisted, and I'm like, and they're coming in that order. Wait, I'm a captain of industry. I went to school with Captain Kangaroo's kid. Wait, whoa, hey, where's this going? So finally, I get a letter from American University, and they offered me a full scholarship, and at this point, I was ready to go somewhere. And when I got to American University, for the first semester or 2, there were a couple of guys there. One had gone to, that I ended up becoming friends with. One had gone to Harvard, one had gone to Yale, undergrad. So we're all at AU, and we're just lamenting, what's going on here. It's like, we shouldn't be here. AU, this is ridiculous. It's not even top 20. This is crazy. And so, we spent the whole first semester talking about how smart we were and how we really didn't have to work as hard as everybody else because we were so superior to them. Well, apparently, the professors that graded my first year papers, they didn't quite grasp my brilliance. And so, when I got it was a wake-up call because I had become too complacent. And so, we decided to, get a whole different program going. It all worked out. Second year, third year, it was on law review. It all worked out. But the point of lesson 1 there is you can never become too satisfied, too complacent, too full of yourself. So now it's time to go out and look for jobs. And I'm in DC. I was thinking I probably wanted to go to back then I guess the path was a big firm, see if you can make partner, or at least get that experience, and then maybe go in-house, maybe go back to government, maybe go to government service. So I ended up applying to a lot of firms. You got to remember, in DC, Georgetown is the highest ranked law school. So what I did, my roommate and I, what we did, not only did we put our resume into the package at American, we knew somebody over at Georgetown, and we hustled to put our resumes into the packet over at Georgetown. And my first job was at a big law firm in Philadelphia, and I think really one of the reasons I got it, because the partner was impressed that somehow I was able to scan my resume from AU over to the Georgetown packet. So my point is, lesson learned there is, hey, don't give up the hustle. That's just something that we need to do. Because sometimes, we get, we're so important, and, we get all carried away with ourselves. But they love that. They love the fact, I had decent grades on that, but the point was, they liked that I was able to pull that off. So, I'm at Schneider, and I'm there, stay there 4 years. And in your second year, you start to get bonuses. It's based on hours that you work, and obviously you get hours because the partners are confident in what they think you can do. And so I'm getting all this work, and when we got our first bonuses, the way we did it, there were 14 people in my class, people who started with me, and what we would do, we'd get our bonuses, and we would list them on the blackboard, not by name, just by amount, because then you can see where you stand in the class. And usually between 1 and 2, it was about a $500 spread. So this year, we listed the bonuses, I know what I got, and then I compare it to everybody else, and I was number 2. And the guy who was number 1, a Caucasian male, his bonus was $2 more than mine. So I'm going to see, if it had been 1,000 more, I would say, okay, I got it. John is clearly number 1. I'm number 2. And out of 14, I'm okay with that. So I went to see the managing partner, who happened to go to Dartmouth. It's a white guy, and we had a good relationship. And I said, Barry, I got to talk to you about the bonus situation. It seems the delta is only $2. What's up with that? Well, Vernon, I got and so I said, Barry, you have asthma? So he's clearing his throat, and then, I'm saying, he said, well, Vernon, I said, well, what do I need to do to beat John out next year? I mean, what am I missing? What kind of feedback can I get? And he said, well, Vernon, I can't really put my finger on it, but, there were just certain partners that just couldn't see you as the number 1 guy in the class. And I said, well, Barry, could it be because I'm too tall? Could it be hair's too curly? I mean, I was trying to get a pulse from Barry, and he really couldn't say it, but it was pretty clear what was being, what the deal was. And, it was disappointing because this is something that I strive to teach young lawyers, and I try to do it myself when I do performance appraisals. If I'm trying to give you constructive feedback, and I really want you to succeed, I want you to learn, then I'm going to try to be as specific as possible, and you need to demand that. It could be as simple as at Meritor, where I work, and I'm making this up, we don't wear red ties. Well, that's easy. Thought, tie, gun, now you know you're in the Meritor culture. But if you come into my office and I start talking about, well, Patricia, yeah, I've looked at your work, it looks pretty good, but I can't quite put my finger on it. When you leave there, what do you work on? What do you work on? I mean, I'm not, so demand specific constructive feedback. It's just one of those things that you need to do. And always understand, when you get into the profession, you are responsible for the final product. And I learned that the hard way. I left the firm after 4 years, and I went to work for one of our clients, which was Scott Paper. I did a memo. The general counsel at the time wanted a memo. It was an important issue. He wanted it done that day. The guess it was my testing coming out party. So he gave it to me. I got it done. I thought it was well thought out, well reasoned. I gave it to my secretary. You gotta remember I'm old, so she typed it. And she typed it. I looked at it real quickly. I rushed it up to him, just as proud as I could be about this great work I had done. He sent it back about a half hour later with about 35 typos in it. He really didn't get to the substance, and I was beside myself. And of course, my first response was, "Oh, Barry, I didn't type it." He said, "But you brought it to me and you signed it." It was my responsibility to make sure that whatever I was presenting to the general counsel at that time was tight. It wasn't. I learned a lesson. I would have rather have said to Barry, I said, "Barry, I know I said I would have it to you by 2 o'clock. If it's all the same to you, I'm going to get it to you by 3. So-and-so just finished typing it. I want to proofread it. I'll get it to you." I'd rather take the heat for being a little late than turn it into the piece of work that I did. So sometimes don't be a slave to artificial deadlines. It's only going to jam you up. I left Scott Paper because I could tell you something deep and heavy, but quite frankly, I was getting married. And my wife graduated from Columbia Law School, and we got married in '82. And she was going to come to Philadelphia, where she's from, and look for a job. But at that time, the Wall Street salaries were exploding. So I said, "I'm sorry, how much did they offer you?" So I said, "Look, I'll find a job, and I'll come from Philadelphia to New Jersey." So I ended up going in-house at Herb Celanese, which is a large German chemical company, about $50 billion in sales. And I was their first African-American lawyer. And sometimes they made me feel that way. Sometimes positive, sometimes negative. When they wanted to show their German colleagues that how liberal they were, they would trot me out at the global legal conferences, and I would give presentations, and that was great. But then other times, it wasn't so great. And one of the things that didn't make it great was I had no professional family at Herbst. There were a couple of African-American executives. At the time, I was probably in my mid-20s, late 20s. They were older, and they had no real interest, these two particular folks, no real interest in either mentoring me or mentoring anybody else of color. So it was a real cold existence when I first got there. And I remember there were a couple of brothers and sisters who were either working in the manufacturing lines or maybe manager level, and we would all eat lunch together in the cafeteria. And I remember this older executive came over to me and said, "Vernon, can I talk to you for a second?" I said, "Yeah, Brian, what's up?" He said, "Look, man, I'm just going to give you some friendly advice. If you want to move ahead at this company, you need to change your lunchroom schedule. You don't want me to eat with the homies?" I said, "Well, I mean, he was." And again, I really do think he was trying to give me good advice for the culture at the time. This goes back to this thing about what you can learn from my story versus how you feel. I mean, some people talk about assimilation. I don't. It's just because my problem is I'm not a good actor, and my memory starts to fade. So my point is, I'm always true to myself, and I tell the truth. Because if I tell you the truth, then I don't have to remember what I told you yesterday, and who I told what to whom, and all that kind of foolishness. So what you need to do is be true to yourself, which is not to say, not try to, you can try to fit in to a particular corporate culture or a particular law firm culture, but you have to be yourself. If you're going in acting every day, you're going to have a heart attack, you're going to have an ulcer. It's not good for you. It's not good for your professional development. And the other thing is, you talk about being true to yourself. I remember when I was at Herbst, this was in the 70s, 80s, so we're starting to deal with issues of diversity. And so we had a diversity summit, which basically, at least at the company that I was at the time, meant that the white guys could say anything they wanted without fear of reprisal. And but you had to couch it in the spirit of openness and trust. So I remember my boss was there. And he gets up and he says to my boss at the time, he gets up and he says, in the spirit of openness and trust, I have to say that every time I see an African American or a woman get ahead, the first thing I look at is this because of their ethnicity or their gender. I said, well, shoot, are we all being candid? I said, well, Ben, let me say this in the spirit of openness and trust. I'm from New Jersey, and Ben had graduated from Uppsala College. Uppsala is a small college in New Jersey that has since lost its accreditation. And so I said, well, you know, Ben, in the spirit of openness and trust, given your background and my background, I should not be working for you. And I'm not suggesting to you that I'm smarter than you. I'm not suggesting that. But take whatever implication you can. But the point is, again, that's my style. It doesn't work for everybody. And I think that, Ben understood that whether he could control my job at that point or not, it didn't scare me. Because, I think Patricia talked about confidence. I had the confidence that if I were myself and it didn't work, I would find some place where it would work. And so after being at Herc-Celanese, I got the call from an executive search firm about a general counsel job at a Fortune 500 company in Detroit. And long story short, I went out, I interviewed for the job, and I thought it went well, and they ended up offering me the job. So my wife and I and 2 sons moved from New Jersey to Michigan. My wife gave up her career, and I was concerned, because my wife was Columbia Law School graduate, hard-charging attorney, and I was concerned that, even though she was trying to be supportive, that she wouldn't take to the full-time, stay-at-home mommy thing. She took to it real good. Nobody's taking this though, right? Because she made a whole 360, and I make a joke, but I would forever be grateful, because I have 2 sons, and even though they might not admit it, having her there every day was very important. She became president of the PTA, president of the Homeowners Association. I said, yeah, baby, that's a fat resume, but ain't no check. But it was okay, because it all worked out. It all worked out nicely, my job took off, and it worked out great. So when I get to Herc-Celanese, make a long story short, when I get to Meritor, okay, I'm a member of the management committee, I'm senior vice president, general counsel, and then I decide, okay, so now I'm here, what am I going to do? Well, the first thing I do is go visit our outside counsel. And I said to the outside counsel, look, here's my philosophy. At majority firms, I want to see a diverse team working on my matters. If I don't see a diverse team working on my matters, then you won't be working for us at all. It's just that simple. And then I remember I was at a conference like this, and a young lady got up and asked me, so Ms. Baker, when you said that, I assume you expected everybody to be competent on the team. And at first I got irritated with her. I'm like, oh, yeah, what else would I do? Why would you say that? Why? Because I have some black people? Well, why would you ask me that? But then I realized that might have been her point of reference. And there is no question about technical competency. Everybody that we hire as outside counsel, they're technically competent. So I want to see a diverse team. I also set aside X amount of our legal spend every year for African American owned firms. We spend about $30 million a year in outside counsel fees, and so I think that that's something that has to be addressed. And also, when I go through a majority firm, whenever I can, I try to use a minority partner as the billing partner, the person who gets the credit. And the only thing I ask for, I don't care if you get that red Mercedes, I'm happy for you. I don't care if you get that big house because of the money that Meritor is spending with you. But what I do care about is that you reach back and you help somebody else. Because if you don't, I'll pull the business. And that's happened. One of the reasons, quite frankly, that I was open to talking to Brian, who introduced me about business, is because I had been disappointed by a brother who we were averaging about $3 or $4 million worth of business with him a year. And he was telling me all the right things. But when I went down to talk to the African American associates, they said the only time so-and-so talks to us, Mrs. Baker, is when you're here. I was like, really? So then I start pulling the business, so the managing partner comes to see me, and he was Caucasian male. and he's asking me, why are you calling the business? Now, the one thing I will not do, I'm not going to tell the white guy that the brother you got ain't black enough. I'm not going to do that. But I just, I try to dance around the issue a little bit. But the point is, it's important to me. And I would really, really appreciate it if it would become important to you. The other thing about my experience at Meritor, which was interesting, which has nothing to do with the business of Meritor, we have a cleaning crew that comes in at night, and I'm usually there after 6. And this lady, Miss Hamilton, came in one day, and she stopped by to see me. She just knocked on the door very polite and said, "Mr. Taylor, I talk to you for a second." I said, "Yeah, Miss Hamilton, what can I do for you?" She said, "I just want to let you know we're happy that you're here." Talking about the cleaning crew. You don't know who's watching you. You don't know who you might be giving a piece of inspiration to or a word of encouragement. I mean, I had no idea that, we used to chat a little bit and talk, but I had no idea that Miss Hamilton was proud of me. I didn't think about it. So I think it's very incumbent upon us to be aware of our surroundings, aware of who's looking at us, aware of who we may be inspiring. Because, you folks are going to be the leaders of our community, and I think it's very, very important that you understand that commitment. And I'll just close by saying, you've read the bio in the book. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more about me. My family and I have been incredibly blessed, way beyond things, in terms of money, car, way beyond that. And I just hope that everyone in this room will be successful and you'll play it back. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vernon. Thank you, everyone. Real quick, and then I know Oswald and then Evangeline has some housekeeping rules. Look, this is free. We need to let the world know what we're doing, how we're doing, and how fun we're having. So definitely hashtag Black Pre-Law, hashtag Black Pre-Law on Twitter, Facebook, like us, National Black Pre-Law Conference, YouTube, Black Pre-Law Conference. Make sure you do that. Hashtag Black Pre-Law, this simple. Go on Twitter, just say what's going on. Say the guy in the bow tie looks cool. Okay. Hashtag Black Pre-Law, Facebook, like us, definitely share it with friends, take pictures, put it on Facebook, put it on Twitter.
Thank you, Mr. Gab. Let's give both our speakers a great round of applause for them. Wasn't that a great story for Mr. Baker sharing his journey to achieving his goals and success? Success and achievement is dual. And all you have to do is identify those individuals who are doing what it is you want to do and find out what they are doing and do what they are doing. At this point, I'd like to bring up Ms. Mitchell. She has some housekeeping messages, but for the next 2 days, you're going to be around attorneys, judges, and lawyers. They are open. They are here to help you. Take the opportunity to reach out to them, to talk to them, because this is what it's all about. And I look forward to speaking to all of you over the next 2 days. Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and have our benediction for the opening session. We're running a little over, so we're going to bring the panelists for the Mock Law School Admissions Committee up here to you so that we can save a little time in terms of movement from one floor to the next. I just want to point out one thing really, really fast. We're going to have a Mock Law School Admissions Committee. Like I said, they're going to come here. Then we're going to have, right after, we're going to go straight into the law school personal statement, diversity statement panel workshop. And so you're going to have to go downstairs for that one because the AV is set up specifically for that. So we're going to go ahead and have a benediction and pray over you that you have a wonderful experience for the rest of your time here. And then we're going to go ahead and get started shortly. Thanks so much.
Would you stand, please?
Father, we do thank you for the wisdom, the experience, the transparencies of Attorney Rozier and Attorney Baker. And And we ask that you would let what these two have spoken be seeds to fuel the rest of this conference. So let your grace be upon each and every aspiring law student as the rest of this conference proceeds, and let it be a great success. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so the panelists are coming to you, so just give us a couple of moments and we're going to get started in about maybe another 2-3 minutes.